Among the long list of heroes in ancient Greek mythology, Theseus' name is undoubtedly one of the most known ones. Numerous works have mentions of Theseus' name in it, and indeed, his heroic deeds are many. The tale of Theseus begins with King Aegeus of Athens. Theseus was the son of King Aegeus and Aethra of Troezen. Some stories have Poseidon as the father of Theseus, and some others even have both King Aegeus and Poseidon as Theseus' fathers. Whichever narrative we follow, King Aegeus is still seen as the father figure in Theseus' story. When Aethra was still pregnant with Theseus, King Aegeus left a sword inside a hollowing and closed it with a heavy boulder. He told Aethra that when the boy, if it's a boy, is old enough and strong enough to lift the boulder and take the sword within, he should come to Athens and claim his place as the rightful heir of Aegis. The king then left Aethra and went back to Athens. Theseus was born not long after King Aegeus' departure. He spent his childhood and youth under the care of his mother and grandfather. Theseus was said to be strong, way stronger than those around him. When the time came for his mother to tell him about the sword in the hollowing, he lifted the boulder effortlessly and took the sword inside. His mother and grandfather then prepared a ship to take him to Athens across the sea, but Theseus was no normal young man. Theseus loved danger so much he sought it voluntarily and denied the ship that was prepared for him, choosing to travel by land instead. At that time, the road was filled with infamous bandits, rendering the journey by land perilous. Why does he go through all this trouble? Theseus was a simple man. He wanted to be a hero and all the glory that comes with it. Hercules' tales of heroism were always in Theseus' mind, which isn't all that weird seeing as they're cousins. So Theseus chose the hard way and went to Athens by road. Unsurprisingly, he encountered numerous bandits along the way. Theseus, being the simple man that he is, dispatched all the bandits that came his way the exact same way the bandits used to murder their victims. For example, Sciron, who made his victims wash his feet then kicked them into the sea, was also thrown off a cliff into the sea by Theseus. Another one, Sinis, who tied people to a couple of pinned down pine trees and letting the tree go to tear his victims apart, was done in the same way by Theseus. His deeds of justice made him a famous defender of the helpless, and suffice to say the people sang praises of him. When Theseus finally arrived at Athens, King Aegeus invited him to a banquet. King Aegeus didn't know of Theseus' identity when he invited Theseus. In fact, the invitation was made so he could poison Theseus. Hearing the many heroic deeds Theseus had done, King Aegeus was afraid that the people would incite Theseus to be their king. So he consulted Medea, the heroine of the Quest of the Golden Fleece, for advice. Medea's sorcery revealed to her of Theseus' identity, and she didn't want the appearance of an heir to disturb her hard-earned influence over King Aegeus, so she advised the king to poison him. At the banquet, Theseus was impatient to reveal his identity, so he produced the sword his father had left the first chance he got. King Aegeus immediately realized who Theseus was and smacked the poison cup out of Theseus' hands. With her plot foiled, Medea escaped Athens and went to Asia. Now reconciled with his son, King Aegeus was overjoyed to finally have an heir to the throne. But things weren't all that joyous in Athens. Some time ago, before Theseus came, King Minos lost his son Androgeus while they were on a visit to Athens. King Aegeus had sent Androgeus on a dangerous expedition to slay a bull, but the bull slew Androgeus instead. Infuriated, King Minos attacked Athens and conquered it. He threatened to burn down Athens to the ground unless a tribute of 7 young men and 7 maidens were made to the island of Crete every 9 years. These tributes were offered up to the Minotaur that King Minos had trapped in the labyrinth of Daedalus' making. Let's talk a bit about the Minotaur. King Minos was once given a bull by Poseidon, one that Poseidon had ordered King Minos to sacrifice for him. But King Minos disobeyed Poseidon and kept it instead, which angered Poseidon. For punishment, Poseidon made King Minos' wife fall madly in love with the bull, and their offspring is the Minotaur. The Minotaur is half bull and half human. Once again, Minos didn't kill the Minotaur, he instead commissioned Daedalus, the great inventor and architect, to fashion a cage for the Minotaur. Daedalus then built his famous labyrinth to keep the Minotaur inside. The halls within Daedalus' labyrinth would shift regularly, making it impossible for anyone to escape it, including the Minotaur and of course, the tributes. Hearing this, simple man Theseus saw his opportunity to be a hero and offered himself up as a tribute to go and slay the Minotaur. He didn't tell anyone of his plan though, just his father. Theseus told King Aegeus that should he succeed in slaying the Minotaur, the ship sailing back home will raise white sails, instead of the black it usually sports as a symbol of the tributes' misery. So Theseus sailed to Crete along with the tributes to hunt the Minotaur. When they arrived in Crete, they were paraded through the streets before going inside the labyrinth. Minos' daughter Ariadne saw Theseus in the streets and was immediately enamored by him. She couldn't bear the thought of her newfound love dying inside the labyrinth, so she called upon Daedalus at once and asked him for a way to escape the labyrinth. Daedalus obliged and provided her with a hint. She then sent for Theseus and bargained with him. Ariadne would give Theseus the hint as long as he agrees to marry her and take her to Athens after slaying the Minotaur. Simple man Theseus was simple. He saw a clear strategy to win and he took it. After the agreement was made, Ariadne told him to take a ball of thread and to tie it to the entrance, rolling it out as he walked further in. When Theseus and the tributes entered the labyrinth, he did as Ariadne told him to and started the search for the Minotaur. Fortunately, he found his mark while it was asleep, so he quickly pinned it down and started bashing at it with only his fists. Theseus slayed the Minotaur with his sheer strength, and using the ball of thread, he was able to come out of the labyrinth along with the tributes. He was a man of his word. He quickly took Ariadne with him and fled back to Athens on their ship. During the way though, he left Ariadne on the island of Naxos and made for Athens without her, leaving her behind. A version of the story has Theseus deliberately leaving her there. Another version says that Ariadne was seasick, and when they made their stop at Naxos, a violent wind pushed the ship away while Ariadne was still on the ground. In the former version, Dionysus later came and comforted Ariadne, but in the latter, Ariadne was gone when Theseus came back to fetch her. In both versions though, Theseus forgot to raise the white sail he promised his father, either because of the excitement of succeeding his quest, or his grief over Ariadne's death. In any case, King Aegeus saw the ship with black sails, and despair overcame his heart. Grief-stricken, King Aegeus leapt off the cliff to his death. The sea where he died is now known as the Aegean Sea. This leaves Theseus as next in line for the throne, but Theseus was a simple man. He didn't want the throne. He didn't want it so much, his first order of business was to build a council hall where citizens were to gather and vote for matters regarding the state. Theseus was still regarded as leader of Athens, but most affairs were dealt by the people itself. Through this act, Athens flourished and became a great city. Theseus was involved in many great deeds, as it was his nature to seek out glory and dispense justice. In the War of the Seven against Thebes, the Thebans didn't give their enemies reprieve to bury the dead, but when their vanquished enemies sought Athens for help, Theseus won against Thebes and he showed them mercy by allowing them to bury their dead. When Hercules went mad and murdered his family, Theseus was the only one who stood by him, telling him that to take his own life as an escape was cowardice and took him to Athens. Theseus loved danger so much that he asked Hercules to help him go to the Amazons and kidnap someone to take as his maid, which they successfully did. He took Hippolyta back with him and she bore him a child, Hippolytus. The Amazons then retaliated and invaded Attica, Athens' neighboring country, to rescue Hippolyta and defeat Theseus. But Theseus came to Attica's aid and won the fight against the Amazons. Being the glory and thrill seeker that he is, Theseus naturally signed up for any quest he could get his hands on. He was on the Argo for the quest to find the Golden Fleece. He joined the Calydonian hunt, the hunt for the Great Boar, during which he saved his best friend, Pirithous. Pirithous' meeting with Theseus was unique in its own way. He had heard of Theseus' heroic deeds and wanted to see if he was as great as the rumors. So he stole Theseus' cattle to bait Theseus into a duel to find out who's the better man. But when he met Theseus, his admiration for Theseus took over and he immediately apologized, saying he'd accept any punishment Theseus deems fit. Theseus didn't punish him though. He asked for his friendship instead. Then and there, they both took an oath of friendship. Pirithous was a trouble magnet though, and Theseus loved trouble, so they were together a whole lot. Theseus was always saving Pirithous from whatever misfortune he got himself into. During Pirithous' marriage, Theseus was of course invited as a guest. His bride was involved with the centaurs, so they were invited to the wedding as well. Things got out of hand when the centaurs get too drunk and started harassing the bride and other guests, so Theseus stepped in to help Pirithous guard his bride and drive off the centaurs. In their last adventure together after Pirithous' first wife died, he wanted to take Persephone, the lady of the underworld, as his second. Naturally, he asked Theseus for help, and of course, Theseus agreed to go. Hades knew about all this and found it amusing, so when the twosome arrived at Hades' realm, he invited them to his abode and to sit in his presence. Though they were wary, they accepted Hades' invitation. Unknown to them, Hades had set a trap in the form of the chairs they sat in. Anyone who sits on it will forget everything and be unable to get up from it, trapping them there forever. Theseus was eventually freed by Hercules and brought back to Earth. Hercules tried to bring Pirithous along, but Hades wouldn't let him, as he knew that Pirithous was the one who wanted to take Persephone, leaving Pirithous trapped, sitting there for eternity. In his older years, Theseus took Ariadne's sister, Phaedra, as his wife. Little did he know that this would be the start of his misfortune. Theseus had sent his son Hippolytus to his hometown when he was still little. There, Hippolytus grew up and became a strong young man, dedicated solely to the goddess Artemis. Hippolytus bore a great dislike towards the goddess Aphrodite and scorned the idea of loving a woman, the very thing that Aphrodite stands for. When Theseus came there with Phaedra to introduce her to Hippolytus, Aphrodite saw a chance to punish Hippolytus. Theseus and Hippolytus had a great time reconnecting with each other, but Hippolytus didn't pay Phaedra any attention, not even so much as acknowledging her. Unfortunately, Phaedra fell madly and irreversibly in love with Hippolytus, courtesy of Aphrodite. Unable to see a way out, Phaedra committed suicide and left a letter saying Hippolytus had laid a hand on her. Deeply enraged and saddened by this, Theseus then prayed to Poseidon and cursed his own son. Moments later, Hippolytus appeared and said that he was framed, but the only witness, Phaedra herself, was dead, so there's nothing else he could say. Out of anger, Theseus banished Hippolytus from the land, and as Hippolytus was traveling on the road beside the sea, a great beast suddenly came out and mortally wounded Hippolytus. He was brought back immediately to Theseus' home, still barely breathing. In that moment, Artemis appeared to convey the truth to Theseus that his son was innocent. Even in his last moments, Hippolytus didn't blame Theseus. To reward Hippolytus' devotion in worshipping her, Artemis took his soul with her to the afterlife. In his later years, Theseus met his demise at the hands of a friendly king, Lycomedes. He was invited to a banquet hosted by King Lycomedes and killed there, but we were never told the reason why. Though he met a tragic end, Theseus' deeds were etched in history. A great tomb was built for him in Athens, dubbed a place of refuge for any and all slaves, poor, and helpless people, in honor of Theseus, the one who protected the defenseless all his life.